How do you ensure that the agents are actually being able to work in concert with each other, and that there's an appropriate level of oversight and governance to make sure that they're doing what they can do and they can collaborate? Yeah, you've got MCP available, but does that actually really help, or does that actually complicate things? I'm thinking that with the variations in the way people are implementing MCP, it might not be as straightforward as somebody would like, so that it again places the burden on the customer.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And this is Analytics Gone Wild. And today we are not going to have Robert, so the show might not be as interesting in talking about food and wine, but we are going to talk about a little bit more interesting topic, which is going to be our stories. And we have a lot that we are going to dive into. A little bit about myself, Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the analyst and advisory firm focusing on enterprise software. On that note, let's go clockwise, I guess. And I can never do this, I guess. Maybe Thomas, you want to? What is clockwise? This one or this one?
Depends on your clock, I guess.
I guess.
I'm Thomas Liebernight. I'm the CEO, principal analyst of Ad CRM, as my banner probably suggests. What I'm doing is I cover basically from a vendor perspective whatever is customer-facing processes and software, and well, on the buyer side, I help them improve on them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Thomas. Michael, do you want to go next?
Sure. So Michael Fawcett, I'm the founder, CEO of Arian Research. We focus mostly on the intersection of CX and AI, agentic AI particularly. I also host a podcast called Disambiguation. It's an AI podcast, and just launched a new newsletter called The Digital Workforce that we're just starting to grow. So
amazing. And guys, check those out. Michael is obviously very insightful. Everybody in this room, I mean, they are fairly well-known subject matter experts in their fields. So please follow them. Okay, Jan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. Jan Burian here. I'm the, industrial analyst. I also work for an IT service provider. I've had those insights. And on top of that, I, work with the startups and emerging companies to help them to get the product right in the market and to understand, especially the manufacturing domain.
It's always good to learn from your industrial perspective. Thank you so much for being here, Jan. Kengon, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. Ken Gonzalez, otherwise known as Kengon. I am the lead analyst and advisor at Pretty Simple Group and also the founder. My area of coverage is infrastructure and operations, AI, and where that meets with CIO topics.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're listening right now in the audience, we always appreciate your comments and stories. But more importantly, any jokes that you might be able to share, because I'm going to be limited on jokes myself today. So I would love to see some from the audience. On that note, I'm going to bring the first story here. I'll provide a little context, guys, and then obviously you guys can provide things from your perspective. So here, this is ServiceNow, and ServiceNow, I'm pretty sure everybody sort of knows them, but overall, in my mind, at least their market positioning is always in that, what is that, ITAM? I think that is going to be the space for Ken. IT asset management is where they were sort of born, but now they have expanded into the CRM category. I would say workflow automation could be another term that you might want to use. They are big into the agentic space right now. And this is, I would see this as more of the ISV on top of ServiceNow. Camunda is, how do you pronounce that? So in this case, they are building orchestration on top of orchestration. At least that's my understanding. They are calling ServiceNow a system of record, which I would not see it personally. I don't know if you guys see it differently. In my mind, the role of ServiceNow was more of the orchestration layer. But now in some industries, maybe they are system of record and they are playing as ERP as well, even though they like to call themselves a CRM. So that's from my side, guys. I'll open up the floor. Whoever wants to go next.
Well, I'll start off by saying that I think a key use case for ServiceNow, both now and previously, has been as both a system of record and a system of engagement. And I was just at the analyst summit for ServiceNow a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that they actually talked about was how they're expanding their footprint, they're making more capabilities available, and I think that their work as a system of record has been evolving, and by virtue of expanding the capabilities of the platform with some of the new acquisitions that they've made and the way that they incorporate technology, I think that they're very logically positioning themselves for each application that they build on top of the platform to now be able to serve as a system of record and then be able to engage with other third-party technologies. So, for example, Workday or even Salesforce with some of the applications, being able to now provide a more complete view. And I'm not saying that that's at a unified level of maturity all across the board, but I think that is the ambition, so that when it comes to the user experience, there's only one place that a user has to go, and that's in the ServiceNow. That's kind of like the place that they'd like to be. Now, today, are they really ready to do that? It's going to depend on a product by product basis whether they can actually live up to the promise or not. But they're certainly building out a number of really interesting tools that I think will help with both the adoption and retention of customers on the platform, because it is probably one of the most pricey tools in the market today.
I mean, one of the big issues, Ken and I think that makes a lot of sense. Their move has been strong in that direction, and certainly trying to compete directly with Salesforce. But one of the big issues with multi-agent systems is orchestration, right? The more you're trying to work across all of these agents and all of these processes, the more you really need that strong orchestration layer. And ServiceNow really just launched their orchestration platform in the last few months. So I suspect there's some holes there. And I think this is probably, a good addition if you're really trying to deploy agents across all of the different processes that ServiceNow touches. This would be a nice add-in or addition to that deployment.
By the way, could you just tell me, is there any a vendor which is actually not somehow collaborating with ServiceNow? I would say ServiceNow is everywhere, right? So for me, it's another big surprise that another vendor went, with them.
Well, they have such an installed base, especially among the top 2,000, that I think anybody would want to be in the ecosystem, because it turns it from a hard sell into shooting fish in a barrel almost.
Yeah.
And for them, for Camunda, this is basically a foregone conclusion. Basically, they need to provide an orchestration platform that goes even further across what other vendors do, else they run into the challenge of becoming obsolete. So ServiceNow offers, as was said before, their own orchestration platform, meanwhile, that they market as sort of vendor independent, so across platforms as well. And as an orchestration company that Camunda is, they of course need to add on that narrative in order to be able to still stand out. So this will be quite interesting to see how that pans out in the next months and years, actually, how specialist vendors in an agentic world cave out their niche.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Thomas. And the other thing I would say is that adding in this new orchestration layer, ServiceNow is still very immature when it comes to that part of their platform. It's new. And they also are, just really over the last few years gotten into this broader stretch of the platform. So they're touching a lot more systems, a lot more data than they used to. So the more you think about deploying agents across that, the more it makes sense to have a true, orchestration layer that can touch all of those different parts of the application.
Yeah. And they have a workflow legacy, which helps them as well in their narrative. So this is what Camunda does here, is very much countering, protecting that turf, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's important.
Well, it's an interesting set of dynamics because when you get right down to it, in the past, ServiceNow has really been, with regards to the ecosystem, partners are all about the ecosystem and what, carrying the ServiceNow flag, as opposed to like in a Camunda situation here, flying their own flag and saying, hey, this is the value that we provide. So you're either on for the ecosystem or you're not in the ecosystem. And that's kind of like was the default perspective. Yeah. And as they've had their ambitions grow larger, grow wider, one of the things I've been very concerned about is what's the impact on the partner ecosystem. Are partners going to be able to find enough value to be able to stay and be relevant in the conversation as they expand on and take more capability? And I think that this case is certainly interesting and it shows potential, but I think it has yet to be seen whether or not the specialist is going to be able to survive and thrive in that kind of situation.
I mean, the strategy is quite clear here. So be in multiple ecosystems.
Yeah.
And offer value to all of them by placing yourself as vendor independent. So become the glue between, name your ecosystem. Because I mean, most businesses out there do have and will continue to have to live in multiple ecosystems. So that they have their ServiceNow, they have their Salesforce, they have their SAP, they have their Oracle, or some of them at least, they have Microsoft. And of course, all these vendors want to get a bigger share of wallet. And of course, all of those vendors tend to focus their own on their own technology. And this is where companies like Camunda have their chance. And this is clearly what they want to take.
Yeah, so great assessment, guys. Let's move to the next one, unless you guys have any other points here on this one. So this one is Coupa, which is different than ServiceNow. So these guys are going to be in procurement space. And I was thinking that maybe John was going to join. If he joined, then he would be really passionate. Okay, I got a procurement story here after a long time, because these guys put me in some random ERP stories, enterprise software stories that I cannot relate to. So here is the procurement story. And in this case, I guess in general, when you look at the procurement space, and which could be unique in itself, and I don't know how much you guys track and understand, how this particular space works, especially when you talk about their overlap with ERP. They might have some overlap with e-commerce, sometimes some overlap with CRM as well. But here, when it comes to procurement, I think that's where you have real value of AI. And I don't know, there were like 1 million startups. I don't know if they still exist or not. They were all doing a lot of, exciting AI stuff for procurement. And here you are going to have a lot of different use cases. For example, let's say if we talk about just these statements of work, SOWs, that you are formulating using your agentic capabilities, that itself could be a big deal. Anything related to strategic sourcing, just for the research itself, I think that's a huge capability. So here they are launching a lot from the source to pay perspective, but in my mind, source to pay is where they play. That's their sweet spot. I don't know if they do more than that, they might claim, but that's their sweet spot. So that's from my side. I'll open up the floor now. I don't know if you guys are going to have any comments.
I mean, to me, the point here, I think, is this broader move towards agents in some commerce type application. So, B2C, obviously, we're going to start to see that more and more as people use agents to go buy things for them and, execute transactions, that sort of thing, source. But in the B2B world, that's going to be a big deal. And I think this is just their move into that, into that space with agents that can work across that process, but particularly in sourcing in that B2B commerce space.
And that's the main thing. So what was very interesting about the bunch of specialists that let's call them specialist agents that they are delivering here. So this would be quite beneficial to whoever buys it. From a buy-in point of view, I'd have preferred if they would have been a bit less heavy on buzzwords in this announcement, more on the outcomes.
Oh, come on, Thomas.
I mean, on in any story.
You gotta play buzzword bingo.
Yeah, but the buzzword density is even higher than the agent density in that one.
but like looking at Coupa's, I mean, the entire platform, it's quite. I mean, it's very supply chain focused, but it's quite broad, right? So like bring the agent capabilities, I would say it's actually the reaction to the other competitors, right? Like SAP, Reco, maybe in certain point, maybe Blender in planning part, right? So let's say that's and maybe they go like one by one, right? So if the agent, I mean, in my I'd say understanding, agent is actually like a digital worker, right? So you need to create and train that, let's say, specific digital worker for a certain role, and you go, let's say, maybe area by area, process by process.
Actually, you're putting an interesting thought here. If I'm looking at many a vendor, what they now call agent, they would have called workflow half a year ago, or let's say a year ago. So what's really interesting here is in how far these agents are agents in a narrow sense, or just a rebranded workflow. That would be quite interesting to learn.
Say, I mean, in my understanding, I mean, workflow is more like it's like a process, right? Like agent is more, could be, when I was with IFS Unleash like 3 weeks ago, they introduced, there were like a tens of like agents, and each agent was like a planner, I don't know, like really like a specific, like a role, right? Like almost like a persona or person.
Yeah.
Right? So in this case, might be like a differentiation.
May or may not be. So what does an agent do? It performs a task, as does a workflow.
But
so
the trick here is, does it have the capability to move to an autonomous relationship in that business? So it doesn't matter if you're using it that way, but it has to have that capability, or you wouldn't consider it an agent, right? If you go to workflow, that's more process-based, deterministic based. And if you move to more probabilistic, and the opportunity to make that agent autonomous over time, once you build a layer of trust, that would be an agent. And that's the way I understood it, at least from the sourcing piece of it. But you're right. I mean, they have been strong in workflow before, and perhaps a lot of that ties back into that workflow capability.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So one really needs to look under the hood a little. How far have they gone there?
Yeah, that's a good point.
The larger concern that I've got with regard, and not specific to this announcement, but I rarely see a vendor now that is not talking about being agentic.
Yep.
And when you think about all the different roles and the different agents that they can bring to the table, how do you ensure that the agents are actually being able to work in concert with each other, and that there's an appropriate level of oversight and governance to make sure that they're doing what they can do and they can collaborate? Yeah, you've got MCP available, but does that actually really help, or does that actually complicate things? I'm thinking that with the variations in the way people are implementing MCP, it might not be as straightforward as somebody would like, so that it again places the burden on the customer to sort out how they're going to take and manage this all. And that for me is a problem that is only going to get worse before it gets better.
I mean, I think you're right on, Ken. That whole idea of governance by design, or ethics and governance by design. I mean, we've got to move towards a place where all of these announcements talk about how you tie into the governance and compliance for each of the companies, and particularly in their workflow, because this is a place that would expose a lot of risk if you move towards an autonomous system that's not transparent and not tied into some sort of an underlying governance framework. Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah, but I mean, but maybe that's why I mean, most of those vendors, when they talk about, let's say, agents, they talk also about the human in the loop, right? Like all the time. And I was like, I was working on the article where I was, or on a thought that, like a research also says that, like most of those, let's say, also like AI-driven processes, but also this like agentic things, they have like a person in the loop. But since the number of transactions is, surging, right? It's actually impossible, right? Like for a human being also be into that loop, just not to be a bottleneck, right? So, and that goes against, I mean, what we just talked about, right? So the, let's say, reliability of this type of solution, of this type of technology.
I mean, human agent interaction is one of those areas where companies are going to have to determine as they implement these what level of autonomy they're going to allow today and what level of autonomy they're going to move towards, right? It's not a on-off switch. It's I've deployed this and this is the human's role in this process for now. And then maybe over time you see it execute, you have enough transparency and governance, and you could actually then feel trusting enough to give it more and more autonomy over some time, and that also is incumbent upon having a system that can review performance of each of those agents and see through kind of how they're making these decisions, and then determine how you want them to fail if they should fail, right? Because I mean, that's every agent is going to put in a situation eventually they're most likely going to fail at something. So how do you handle that failure, and how do you make sure that stays inside that governance framework?
Perfect. Great debate, guys. And Michael, I do like the term by design. You throw that after anything, I guess that becomes a cooler product, and you can jack up the price by 3x just by doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's valuable. I keep telling my clients, like, add that to your marketing material. That's good.
Yeah. And Michael is always a little shy, so we have a little plug here for Michael. Hello, Tony. Tony is saying,
hey, Tony.
So he's talking about report. Interesting news. I don't know, Michael. I mean, do you want to talk about this yourself, or if somebody else wants to cover Michael's news, that could be a possibility.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe we should add that in the future. But
yeah. So no more details here. What this is about?
Well, I mean, I will. So the reason Tony's excited about this, because I have shared this with him and a few other companies, but the company he's the co-founder of, 180 Ops, is really focused around revenue ops and intelligence, and they have a very strong AI platform that they built to do that, to really tie the data together and enable a sales ops or revenue ops, from a platform perspective. And in that report, one of the things I tried to do was kind of recast some of the different categories we have in sales tech, because some of those categories are just getting too old and moldy at this point. And one of them was a revenue ops and intelligence platform category that they fit squarely in and are a great example of where I think companies need to move. So that's a plug back for 180 Ops, and I appreciate Tony bringing the report up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe this is a plug for Tony. Very clever, Tony. Good job.
Yeah,
he's a smart guy.
Nothing against shameless plugs.
Not at all.
Okay, so let's move to the next story. So here we have ECI Software Solutions, and this is what I was waiting for, because this is really ERP story. So far, I don't know what we were talking about so far. Okay. So this is a real ERP vendor, ECI Software Solutions. And in this case, they are saying that they have launched Net1 Commerce Suite. which would read as if they have launched some sort of e-commerce solution, but that's not the case here. Okay, guys. So what they are doing, they are bringing the sort of the AR API automation, and there are like million vendors in that space. They are working slightly best of breed. I would say even banks are competing. Like literally every bank out there has launched very similar tragedy offering because they don't have any other ways to compete, and it's almost crazy that banks are trying to compete with technical vendors, but they are. So they are launching very similar platforms. In this case, ECI has launched its own. So my assumption is going to be that they are probably not going to play as well with any other similar platforms, which is going to be, I guess, Bill.com is one. Chapalchi is another one. I guess they are in the tragedy space. Ooh, Blackline. If I'm, yeah, they are probably in this space. So that's what they are doing. They have many different solutions in their portfolio, GCOM, Job Boss, and M1, and it's going to work with all of that. So I'll open up the floor now. What do you guys have on
I mean, Sam, I'm not that familiar with these guys, but I did take a look when you sent this out, and my reaction to this was sort of like, it looks to me like it's useful. It's an RPA type workflow solution, automation, from a more of an old school RPA category than anything, but I mean, useful in the verticals they play in, I would assume.
Similar. So what I find almost refreshing is that there's no agentic or almost nothing agentic.
I was kind of disappointed in that one, Thomas.
Yeah, so this is to what Ken said a little earlier. So you cannot not talk about agentic. Apparently one can, which is quite a good thing. And the other good thing in there, without me knowing them too well as well, is they're actually looking at tangible benefits in their press release. So which is something that I recommend to my clients to do more often.
So in this case, guys, I don't know how much you guys understand this, but in this case, there is going to be real bank account integration, okay, with these offerings. And I don't know how many people are going to feel comfortable in having an agent talk to your bank account directly. I mean, personally, for me, that'll be a little too much. So I don't know if you want to have agentic capabilities, but this is a real workflow. To your comment, Michael, related to RPA, RPA is baked with pretty much every single platform out there. I like to think of that as more of the technical ingredient. ERP workflows are going to have that. AP automation, AR automation workflows are going to have, but generally ERPs don't necessarily integrate with banks, even though it would read in their marketing material. That's where you need AR automation, AP automation. They serve a very different purpose. They have a little bit more workflow in terms of multi-bank, cash treasury planning. They might have a little bit of historical data that might not exist with your ERP system. So that's where their play is. In this case, ECI is a very small offering overall from the ERP footprint perspective. So they want to have as integrated solution possible. They don't want to have something like NetSuite where you are going to have many vendors, because that does increase the integration cost a little bit. So I think that's where their play is going to be. More comments, guys?
Yeah, but they're quite. I'm looking at at their offering, and I can see. I mean, they're quite broad into, let's say, this like a technical domain, right? So so speaking about that Net One, they are actually, it goes, I mean, through most of their, let's say, industrial areas or industries they cover, except maybe one or two, right? So maybe this also comes, but that's interesting for me, right? So they're in manufacturing. If you look at the applications, they also have the MES, APS, whatever, right? And this let's say payment processing software is there. Yeah, I mean, let's see, maybe, and then they might be also bringing it to the other industries, as I can see.
So for the most part, and for your visibility, they have acquired a lot of different products. Manufacturing is obviously a big one for them, and each of those products are going to be positioned to a specific industry. But as such, I don't see them being overlapped with any sort of industrial kind of workflow. And industrial, when I use the term, I'm thinking more OT. Industrial could mean a lot of different things. But here, this is real corporate financial workflow as opposed to the real industrial workflow. So I guess that's where the difference is going to be.
All right.
More comments, guys? If you don't have, then we can move to the next one. Okay, so some more context here, and I guess you guys wanted to talk about MCP, so we have MCP here. And by the way, this is probably going to be Jan for you, because this is a real industrial player. As far as my understanding of HighByte goes, I don't know what is their real positioning in the market. Obviously, you have, what is that, 5 different stacks, I guess, in your OT stack as well. But here and by the way, everybody's launching MCP, so everybody must launch an MCP. If you don't launch, then you should not probably remain in the business. But here, the purpose of MCP is very different. They have many different connections, and there is like religious debates about MQTT versus OPC UA versus what is that unified namespace, in the OT industrial community. But overall, I guess, I mean, everybody's talking about consolidation as well. But when you talk about bringing all of these tools together, who should be the right candidate for consolidation is always an open question, personally, for me. So that's from my side. What do you guys think?
I mean, just the idea to me, when I saw that, when I read through this, if you're deploying agents, you need, at least today, some access to an MCP server so you can have those agents use tools to actually do the work they're going to do for you. So, when I look at this, I go like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I would want to have, that access, and I suspect would be popular with their customer base if they're moving towards that agentic deployment.
Yeah, I'm quite bearish on that one as well. To me, this is a classic, hey, don't forget about me, I'm still there.
Exactly.
More comments, guys? Jan?
I mean, I recognize HighByte, and no offense, right, as a sort of kind of like a startup, right? Like several years ago, I wrote about them. I was with IDC, and I met them in Hanover this year. They work very closely with the AWS, right? So they leverage the platform, the solution. So, I mean, for me, let's say, leveraging AI agents and expanding or having all those, let's say, connectors and ability to get to the data, or to get the data from different, let's say, sources. It's actually the natural move, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many companies will take an offense when you call them a startup. I mean, Tony in the audience is probably going to feel very happy if you call him a startup, because that's kind of cool, right?
An AI startup, not just a startup, but an AI startup.
Startup.
Startup, exactly. Even cooler. More comments?
No.
Okay, if you don't have anything else, okay, move to the next one. And this is a very development story. That's how I see it. To be completely honest, when you talk about the testing space, any sort of continuous improvement, continuous development in that space, I do see value of any sort of agentic workflows. So here they are talking about automated unit test generation. So it's almost like AI testing AI, which is wonderful because you don't have to do any work, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, they are talking about taxing AI agent, taxing like tax, and we might have universal basic income, which could be like tens and thousands of dollars, hopefully, every month. And we can tax these AI agents and create income for us. I guess that's the kind of world that I want to live in. I don't know about you guys. But in this story, I guess, so this is the automated testing story. I'm pretty sure there are like a lot of vendors that are doing very similar things. Parasoft, I'm not personally familiar with them, but it's good to see that a lot of innovation is happening in this particular space as well. I'm pretty sure you guys are probably going to have more about this story. Thomas?
Yeah, I think companies like Parasoft are extremely important, because if you're looking at software development or implementation projects, guess what are the first two things that are falling off the budget. It's the prolonged test, because that's highly expensive, using many people, and change management. And they are focusing on the testing, and they are not only doing testing, but also venturing into fixing at least some aspects of what they are finding as defects. And this makes it quite valuable, apart from the interesting choice of words that they have, blending buzzwords with outcomes.
I like it.
It's a recurring theme for me. But you always need to have some outcomes, and they are basically telling how the buzzword contributes, or the implementation of the buzzword contributes to a positive outcome.
I mean, you're starting to see more of this too, right? It's like focusing down stack. It's focus automation on things like data quality, data management, testing, and automation from automated coding all the way out to the test and QA. So to me, it's just another checkpoint that says, yep, we're getting more and more down into the infrastructure layer where we need automation to actually make all the other automation that we're talking about work.
From a software development perspective, there's especially for those that are leveraging AI coding partners, there's a real push around spec-driven development and the ability to integrate test-driven development as part of that workflow, that code generation perspective. And to the extent that provides a tangible benefit in relieving some of the burden for being able to develop test cases and have an additional degree of scrutiny prior to moving something along the release cycle, I think that's a really good thing. But I think that one of the things that attracts me about Parasoft is that as soon as you get out of the code generation realm and start getting into now where you get closer to actually releasing it, putting it into the wild, I think that there are so many things that could actually go wrong that you probably want to test for, that it becomes real expensive to go through all those different test cases and keep them maintained. So to the extent that the product suite can actually help address that particular burden and allow people to focus on, okay, now that I've seen what's been generated for me and that I'm using that's now automated, how can I go through now and look for the edge cases where the person actually needs to be using their expertise to determine what additional stuff that they need to be building for that, and then interpreting those results in a way that actually show that you're getting better coverage and producing a more reliable, stable, functional product for the person that's going to consume it.
Great points, guys. Do you guys know any other vendors that are in this space that are positioning themselves maybe as AI native, and not just position, I guess, hopefully they have real capabilities as well underneath. Do you know any other vendors in this space by any chance? Anybody? Okay. Yeah, I'm always curious about that because I was tracking FP&A. I think there are 3 vendors now in the FP&A space that are AI native in the ERP world, at least 3 or 4. CRM, there is only one, I believe, that is truly AI native, as far as my understanding goes. Now, all of them are obviously going to be startups, but they are getting a lot of funding.
Okay, but you speak in general. You speak in general, right? About this, let's say, AI native. So, like what I saw lately was a cybersecurity AI native vendor. That was very interesting, right?
Yeah. So when I say AI native, meaning they must have AI native architecture, whatever that means. Don't ask me.
There we are. Whatever that means, that's the operative phrase here.
Right.
Sam, the one I've seen that falls into that category is a company called Mabel, MABL. I know they have an automated testing platform, scalable testing platform that's AI native. That's the only one I've talked to in the last several months, but I know there's a few others out there.
Are they sort of add-on, or are they like horizontal platform? And my understanding of Parasoft is going to be they are going to be slightly more horizontal, because in this space, my understanding of this is they are also very ecosystem specific sometimes, because there are going to be nuances. So you have pure play software development, but then you also have the commercial software autonomous testing, which could be very different beast in itself, because they are not necessarily code. But nowadays, I guess in the AI native world, everything is going to be code. So I don't know where they sort of hang out, and I'm not even sure about Parasoft. I know some vendors in the SAP space, they were very dedicated to that. I don't know if they go across the board. Microsoft has a lot of vendors for their tool set. So the commercial and software development space could be very, very, very different. Okay, so the next story, if you guys don't have any other comments there. So here we have Provus and Kantata. And if you guys are not familiar with Kantata, they are sort of the PSA. And I don't know if everybody's going to relate with the category. PSA is Professional Services Automation. I would say that's far thicker than a traditional project management category. I think Ken likes to talk a lot about project management category, but when you go into the real financial workflows, by the way, we are not talking about ERP. It's still very limited in terms of what a PSA category can do. But when you are looking for, let's say, the best of breed professional services experience, from the client workflow perspective, and you are going to have all of those milestone project tracking, etc., that's when your PSA category is going to be important. And then you have Provus, which is, in my mind, would be more of CPQ, and there are a million CPQ tools out there. I don't know if these guys are primarily focused in the Salesforce ecosystem. Kantata, my understanding is that I think they have 2 different products as part of their portfolio. If my recollection is right, one is slightly more best of breed user experience, one is baked inside Salesforce itself. So we are talking about collaboration of these 2, and I can see some value in that. There's a real integration, thick integration that needs to happen between CPQ as well as PSA. Some vendors, for example, I think Thomas, you like to talk about Sugar CRM. They have their own CPQ, and they have project management. I don't know if they have a real PSA. So this is very interesting personally for me. This is a good integration. It's not AI cool, but it's still very cool.
And most predominantly, it solves a real problem. So, I mean, there is this order that gets out by a professional service company to a client for professional services over some time. And all of a sudden, we are not realizing that revenue. So that is a problem for every consulting company. And having this tie back of actually generated revenue to planned revenue is extremely important for every consulting company in order to figure out where and why one doesn't deliver the services that are promised to deliver, or that are getting asked for. Maybe they are not called off, but there is a reason for it, and that needs to get found out. And for that, you need to trigger to start acting. And this is something that can really help there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity around project-based business, project-based work to automate different parts of it, connect parts of it and automate them. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the Deltek announcement in a few minutes too. And that's a similar kind of thing, right? They're just all across the project ecosystem. There are opportunities for adding different types and different levels of automation and autonomy to help that process work better and help those companies optimize their revenue. So.
Yeah, great points, guys. More comments on this story? Or Michael is really waiting for the Deltek story. So let's move to the next one.
No.
Maybe we should keep going.
We got the Rootstock story before that.
Yeah, one more ERP story. All right, so let's do this. Okay, so Rootstock, as you all know, they are also ERP vendor. By the way, there is a little bit more overlap here because Kantata was in the Salesforce ecosystem. Rootstock is also in the Salesforce ecosystem. And in this particular case, I think there are a lot of changes, happening at Rootstock. In my mind, this would be more of the vertical acquisition. Salesforce has done a lot of vertical acquisitions themselves. Obviously, any players that are part of their ecosystems, they are following very similar strategies. Well, a little bit of context here. Obviously, generally these acquisitions are going to be from 2 or 3 different perspectives. Number one, when the OEM is trying to do a lot more of their own professional services and they need that consulting expertise, this acquisition can help. That's number one. I don't know if they had any sort of IP. Sometimes the acquisition is also related to IP. If the OEM is looking for slightly more industry expertise. But in my mind, I think there have been a lot of changes at Rootstock, especially at the executive level. They didn't have a real, product executive, and they wanted somebody. So that could be a driver for this acquisition. I'm not too certain about that. But these are different points. Overall, this is very exciting. I cannot comment on their strategy in terms of what they are trying to do with the acquisition, but I think they needed new leadership, at least from the AI front. Because they are doing a lot of development from the AI perspective as well. So I don't know if you guys are going to have more background about them. Any thoughts?
I mean, it's a pattern that we see often, as you already indicated. For a software vendor, it is important to be able to drive implementations. For that, you need consulting experience that they don't always have. So you mentioned Sugar before. They acquired a couple of consultancies for similar reasons, plus gaining industry experience. And the second one for them was, and that I see here as well, is driving best practices of implementations. And a side benefit that they probably have is acquiring additional customers that come from the Praxis Solutions part. Yeah, it's a common theme, and it's important to vendors to not only have the software out, but also the working connect to clients.
So personally, one thing on that comment, Thomas, what I really like is clarity in terms of your distribution model. Because if you don't have clarity, then you are probably going to run into a lot of channel conflicts. And because of that, you are going to have customer experience issues, implementation issues during your engagement as well. I don't know how Sugar CRM positions them. My understanding of their model was that they were very partner friendly. They wanted to sell through partners as much as possible. I don't know if that is common across CRM vendors. I know Salesforce like to develop partner channels a lot. HubSpot obviously has substantial partner channel, but they also have their own professional services, which is where sometimes buyers get crossed. Sometimes there are changes in the strategy. For example, Jan, I'm pretty sure you have probably noticed this at IFS as well. IFS was very much into going direct. They did not have as developed partner channel, but now the focus has completely shifted, and now they are going after a lot of partners. So I don't know if Rootstock is taking any particular direction versus the other. I don't think they have a clear strategy whether they want to distribute through partners or their own professional services.
I mean, for scaling, you need partners, period. So, but in order to scale also efficiently, you need to have a framework of how to implement your software.
So the challenge that
you need your own, in order to define that and provide this framework and roll out this framework, you need your own SI experience and competency, basically. And
but we talk about sorry.
No, I'm done.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I was just asking, but we talk here about like a Salesforce focused consulting, right? So it's not like a general thing, right? So, but I agree with Sam, right? So I mean, those ERP companies, they're building up like a new partnerships, acquisitions. It's like, so it's sometimes it's like, let's say super, I don't know, it's like a complicated, but it's so many announcements, you're not even able to, to follow all of them.
Yeah, so in this case, Jan, just to clarify, I guess, Praxis was the consulting partner for Rootstock. They were consulting on Salesforce as well. So they get much deeper Salesforce expertise, plus, obviously Rootstock consulting expertise as well. Yeah. More comments, guys? No?
Well, I was just happy to see agentic mentioned in the release. That's
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you have to. And hopefully somebody keeping the count, because we have to do that.
have to.
Right? That's a must.
In the Salesforce ecosystem, you can't not be agentic.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Is that a criteria nowadays for being a partner? Okay. So if you guys don't have anything else, I don't know how much time we have left. We still have 10 minutes. And we could cover a lot of stories. And by the way, we are talking about Deltek now. Can you believe this? Michael was waiting for this story.
Yep.
So,
Michael.
So I don't know, Michael, do you want to go first?
Happy to. I mean, as you know, I've known Deltek for a long time, and they over the last couple of years, I mean, they've invested a lot in moving towards the use of AI across the project lifecycle, and this is just a continuation of that. I mean, they announced Della and their platform last year, and so they've just built on top of that, and a lot of this, particularly, I think particularly in this case, the focus around risk exposure, risk management, and the automation around that is really important from a consulting business, professional services business perspective. So, it seems like a continuation of that evolution that they've had for the last 2 years, and adding some really interesting features, particularly around that risk, management area.
Yeah. By the way, guys, the best thing about this slide is, they are talking about Deltek native architecture. It's not AI native, it's Deltek native.
Deltek native.
I don't care for AI native anymore. I'm going to have my own architecture, which is Deltek native.
Why would you not? I mean, we're going to have Sam
Right,
native, right?
Yeah. Exactly. More comments, guys?
If you read through it, the buzzword density, well, achieves quite a level there. So, but it's from a content point of view, it's Michael nailed it basically, because what they are doing here, they are sharpening their story while adding something, features, functionalities, features, possibly outcomes that are relevant to the target audience there, to their customer base. Yeah. Which is usually quite strictly regulated, and that helps strengthening their story basically and their positioning. So
I mean, particularly on the GovCon side, you're right, and actually out to professional services too, the Vantage Point piece. But having it in GovWin and Cost Point is an important piece of this, and certainly a highly regulated, high risk type of business for their customers.
Yeah, and Michael, to that point, I guess one thing that I personally appreciate, which I don't want to do myself, I would rather have AI do it, is dealing with the government and their compliance processes, to be completely honest. Okay,
that's absolutely the truth.
Yeah, when you are talking about in the RFP and you are looking at RFP of ERP, but the proposal has to have Times New Roman 11 font. If you are going to have 12, I'm going to reject your proposal.
Nope, I won't work it. Yeah,
right. That kind of compliance we are talking about in proposals. You have to have that. And again, I think that's where AI brings tremendous amount of value in doing the boring things so that I can do more exciting things.
Yep.
More comments, guys? If not, we can probably do one more story. And what? I mean, are we going to be at the finish line today? There's a possibility. Okay, and we are going to present this as sort of the best case study to Robert, that we could finish 10. Can you believe this? We were never able to do this in last few episodes. Okay, so Flowfinity, I like the name. Okay, so they are talking about AI project success. Okay, somebody's talking about success here, I guess. And they are no-code platform. And there are a lot of them. I think everything AI is sort of low code, no code these days, right? Because AI is doing coding. So they are doing workflow automation. I mean, who's not doing workflow automation, I guess? I don't know. I don't necessarily know their place where they play. But for the most part, my understanding of their platform is going to be that they are no code platform for AI native development. And I don't know how many different players are there, but I can see a real value here. which was the player, and we have done a lot of stories about them. I guess that was Pipefy, and there are too many pipes in the industry right now, so I get very confused. I think I'm talking about Pipefy. Every single consulting company out there was going after them because they all want to develop products, IP, because consulting companies can do that. So I don't know if these guys are going to be competitor with Pipefy. I see them as more of the workflow automation. But then there is something called Lovable. I don't know if you guys have used that. Lovable is becoming very popular as well in the app space. So again, I don't know if these guys are going to be competitor of that, but any insights, guys, from your side?
I mean, what they are doing is workflow automation, no code or low code workflow automation, which is a very, very broad topic.
Yep.
What I like about this is the slant that they are giving to, well, AI supported or AI infused workflow automation, right, as just positioning it as something that's inevitable and of course we are doing that. Yeah. So just putting the AI part into the background and putting the outcome more in the foreground. So this, from that angle, I really like it. What is a bit doubtful is the whole language is a bit soft. There isn't much that is new, really new for them. So from a negative point of view, one could say, hey, it's another Me Too. But well, while the approach is good, they should have probably focused a bit more on the benefits that they are delivering with it.
Yeah, it's definitely about benefits. Guys, more comments on the story?
Yeah, so I like this as a starting point.
Yeah.
I think that from a development perspective, we see that there's a lot of tools for being able to bring AI into the fold to help make things quicker, easier, and cheaper. And the cheaper might be debatable at this point long term. But certainly from what I read in the release, the thing I'm excited about is on the last piece, which is about embed AI assistance seamlessly into operational workflows. A historical kind of gap that I've seen, especially with DevOps, has been the lack of connection between Dev and Ops. And it's really cultural. So I think that to the extent that their product will be able to help bridge that gap and bring a little more capability to what organizations need to do in order to be able to manage fully throughout the life cycle, I think that could be a very positive benefit, because I don't see a lot of people actually working on that part of the equation. And I'm interested to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, me too. Any other comments on the story, guys?
Well, I mean, I'm looking just at the website, right? And I wasn't aware of that. But they also, if I'm correct, they're into that industrial IoT area or space, right? That's exactly interesting.
And that is another term you have to throw in there. You need to have it. Okay. All right. So if you don't have anything else, then let's do our closing. We still have 2 minutes. I'm going to forget again my drill here. Where the clock is moving, I have no idea. But maybe Ken, you can start.
So my key takeaway for this week is about the managing the agents and how you're gonna. That customers need to start paying more attention to. Yeah, we've got a lot of agents working, but how are we coordinating? How are we applying good principles around governance, risk, and compliance to this to make sure that we're able to have everybody work in harmony and not have these agents be working across purposes or sabotage the kind of outcomes that people are looking for unintentionally?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Ken, for that. Jan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, well, my general thought for this week, I mean, I already mentioned that, right? Was that two actually things on my agenda. One is I'm writing the piece about which I call 6 burning questions for 2026. So I'm now into the, topics I mean, like, is quantum going to materialize somehow, or is again, I mean, what are we going to do with that human in the loop, right? So is it really something that's sustainable or not, right? So those are actually my thoughts, right? So what's gonna shape tech and maybe a little bit of business and society in 2026?
Yeah, and hopefully it is generating some heat, because I would not like any burning questions that are not generating any heat. Thank you so much, Jan, for that. Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, I think the one thing that I see as a through line through this, and for the last several conversations like this that we've had, is more and more discussion about the workflow and the process, and less conversation about the applications. And I think that's actually where we're going, right? It's focus on the workflow, end-to-end workflow, and let's stop focusing on the application silos that we built out for the last 40 years or so, that have caused all sorts of problems around data integration, even organizational problems, right? Organizational silos as well. So that seems to be a much more common thread. And frankly, I'm excited to hear it, and hopefully that the volume of that conversation turns up more into the next year.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you so much, Michael. Thomas?
Yeah, what I see is that there are still too many vendors talking about the how, which is the technology, AI agents, whatever, without providing real information about the value outcome, or the outcome, the value of the outcome. So the why, basically. And what I do think is that from a buyer side in 2026, we will be having more and more companies actually looking into the why should I do this? And this to some extent it's getting answered, for example, by Salesforce, looking at their yesterday's quarterly release, but that needs to become far more aggressive from a vendor side. So why do that? Why do it with this technology and not with something that is there since forever?
Yeah, sounds like a good theme for Analyst Gone Wild for the next year. Analyst Gone Why? Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining. That's it for the show. We meet every Thursday, and there is a possibility that we might move this show to Friday, but that might be too early to announce. But I'm just giving you a heads up. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next Thursday. I think we have one more show for the year, and that's it. We are going to wrap for the year. We're going to head for the holidays, and then we'll come back in the new year with more exciting stories. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.